DeAndre Hopkins is officially a Tennessee Titan. And what the hell do you do with Treylon Burks? It's unfortunate with all the takes and everyone in the community really believing in Treylon Burks. But now, are you buying, are you holding, or are you selling him? Comment down below. Let me know what you guys are doing with your Burks stock. And as always, go to flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what Zach and I are doing here at Dynasty Land. You get our rankings, our bonus content, and all of our articles, not only from us, but all of the content creators on there. And the website is getting better and better day by day, week by week, and month by month. Once again, flockfantasy.com/land, the best place to support what we're doing here. And you get 30% off at sign up. So let's get straight into the video. So what are you going to be doing with your Treylon Burks stock? Should you be buying, holding, or selling? I'm bringing you my perspective and what I believe Zach would also be telling you guys in this moment. Obviously, Zach is on holiday right now and really just taking the time off. But I know for sure he was definitely one of the biggest advocates for Treylon Burks in this offseason. He was talking about him all offseason. Since the season ended, it was Treylon Burks. And now with DeAndre Hopkins signing to this team, it does not look good for that take, unfortunately. But there's two different narratives that we can kind of talk about here. But before we get into that, DeAndre Hopkins does sign a 2-year, $26 million deal worth up to $32 million in incentives. And now what does that mean for Treylon Burks? Well, let me remind you, Treylon Burks was a first-round draft picked in the 2022 draft. This past year, with the whole trade with A.J. Brown, you know, they traded away A.J. Brown. They got a first-round pick and so much more in that draft. They go out and get Treylon Burks, who was a Debo-esque type of wide receiver, a guy that a lot of the fantasy community, a lot of the NFL community was really comparing him to, the way he can be utilized, his build, his shape, everything that he can do. They really believe that he can be a guy that can be a threat in jet sweeps, a guy that can be a threat in space, and the guy that has great hands to go up and get a contested catch, to contest the catch, right? So with Treylon Burks, once again, there's two different options. There is an option where his upside is capped with DeAndre Hopkins, right? Option number one. So what does that option look like? DeAndre Hopkins is coming in and guaranteeing 120 plus targets in this offense. He's a guy who has played with multiple quarterbacks, over 10 quarterbacks in his career. Really good, really bad, some backups, some, next day pickups, and they targeted him for 10 picks, and now he's going with Ryan Tannehill, and he is easily going to be getting, once again, 100 plus targets this year with Ryan Tannehill, or even more, and be this fantasy relevant wide receiver that we've seen. And we've seen the fantasy relevancy that Ryan Tannehill has produced with A.J. Brown, right? But we've really only seen it with one wide receiver on the team in the past. Not saying that he can't do it with both wide receivers, just saying we've only seen when A.J. Brown was on that team, it was A.J. Brown and no one else. Sometimes you see had the tight end position kind of spark up a little bit. Or maybe Corey Davis had a boom game, a game or two, but it was really just the one wide receiver. Now this is a little bit different because Treylon Burks is a first-round draft pick, and what does that look like for Treylon Burks in the positive side? So the positive thing is now with Treylon Burks is that, well, DeAndre Hopkins can get double teamed. They have to think about Derrick Henry and stack the box. That means Treylon Burks is going to be one-on-one with, your cornerback too, for essentially the whole season, right? And that can bring tremendous opportunity, which I think a lot of the fantasy community has realized in the past day or two, since he went from wide receiver 23 to wide receiver 31, now kind of jumped back up to wide receiver 28. Now, I'm not saying that can't happen. I'm saying that feels a lot more comfortable to me and what I've always envisioned. For me in my rankings, Treylon Burks was always my wide receiver 28, 29 area. I never had him as high as the community or high as Zach had him in the community. One of the things I've always said about Treylon Burks is that it's not about his talent, it's about this offense. This is a run-heavy offense, and yes, this offensive coordinator is new and is coming in, and Derrick Henry is another year older. But in a dynasty perspective, what does that look like for Treylon Burks in the long term, in the 2-year gap? So he's going into his second year this year, and he's going to have DeAndre Hopkins going into his third year. Does that change next year? Because I don't think DeAndre Hopkins takes a step back, and the only way we see the Treylon Burks step up if DeAndre Hopkins misses a couple games, which we have seen. In reality, we have seen him miss a couple games, 5, 4, couple games in his career, but he's always come back and demanded those targets. So we might see a glimpse of Burks and what he can do without that season. But where is that value now? Where does he equate? Should you be buying, holding, or selling Treylon Burks right now in fantasy football? And the thing that I would say right now is that the only thing that you should be doing is holding. If you have stocks in Treylon Burks, you cannot sell him right now in the community. Wide receiver 28, that's not something that I really want to be selling. At the moment, at the time, Zach at some points was saying you can get Treylon Burks he would pay a first for Treylon Burks. I was saying I'm not happy to pay a first for Treylon Burks. I'm happy to pay an early to mid second for Burks. Now, where is that value really going to be going? Does that stay the same, in my opinion, or does that go down? And I think that can easily go down to a mid to late second. I don't think anyone is going to be sending a late second for Treylon Burks. Or excuse me, I don't think anyone should be selling Treylon Burks for a late second. So you really have to wait and be patient and either buy him low or hold him. You're not selling him whatsoever. At the community right now, once again, wide receiver 28. He's still valued as a late 23 first if you still have your 23 drafts to do. Now, do you take the 110, hypothetically, a Dalton Kincaid over Treylon Burks? I'm interested in Dalton Kincaid a little bit more. Do you take a Jameson Williams over a Treylon Burks in the offense that JMO is in right now? Because Jameson is wide receiver 25, and that's kind of the window that you're looking at. And once again, if you are looking to trade away or acquire, if you're looking to trade away, let's look at trade away. So if you're looking to trade away Treylon Burks, would you like Michael Pittman? I think that's a tough one to say. Right now, I would rather have Treylon Burks. Would you have a Terry? I would rather have Treylon Burks. Would you rather have a Calvin Ridley? I would rather have Calvin Ridley. Would you have George Pickens? George Pickens could be an interesting conversation. I would personally rather have George Pickens because I believe in that offense. Something that's really interesting to me is Zay Flowers is wide receiver 32. Can you get Zay Flowers right now on the low and some more and send away Treylon Burks according to the community? I would do that in a heartbeat right now if I had a significant amount of stock of Treylon Burks. Look, there's so many different ways that this can happen, that this can go, right? Treylon Burks is no longer fantasy relevant for this year and or next year, or we see a glimpse of plays where you still have to believe in Treylon Burks, but his upside is limited. Once again, he's been my wide receiver 28, and he's going to continue to be there. I've always seen his ceiling really capped at wide receiver, at best, wide receiver 17, 18, 19. I never saw him in the top 15 top plays that maybe, the fantasy community has seen him, or maybe even Zach has seen him right in that area. I've always seen him in the window of, wide receiver 17 to wide receiver 30. And that's maybe a big gap. But now that upside is even capped even lower. So instead of being the wide receiver 17, I see him more as at the wide receiver 22 to about the wide receiver 30 now. So that gap is capped a little bit. He's in this window for me where I'm not necessarily sure I want to be investing in Treylon Burks. And I did say I do believe, or I'm going to tell you what Zach is going to be doing. And I know for sure Zach is going to be holding. You're not going to be selling Treylon Burks for the low because of, his history, right? What happens when DeAndre Hopkins gets hurt? Treylon Burks is a first round draft pick. They're not just going to be done with him. He is going to have value at some point, but when is that going to be? So once again, guys, that is my thought process, my evaluation. Maybe I rambled a little bit. Just wanted to put that out there for the community. Let's have a conversation. I'm really interested to know if you are still holding Treylon Burks, if you are selling Treylon Burks, and if you are believing that this actually is going to be helping Treylon Burks. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be helping Treylon Burks open more passing opportunities to him, and we're going to be seeing this offense changing in 2023. So comment, like, and subscribe, and as always, It's all up.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, L-A-N-D, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.